Welcome to Selfish Confidence, a place where we can connect and be real about how hard it is to be your damn self. I'm your host, Jess, and my goal is to help you build confidence and belief in yourself to live any life path you want, even if it's unconventional. It's time to break down those barriers and connect with women who've also felt on the outside by their life choices. We're encouraging you to grab the mic and speak your truth. I know it can be scary, but we're in this together. We got this. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Selfish Confidence Podcast. I got someone really cool and exciting. She looks absolutely stunning over there, and I am looking like a hot mess, but that's totally okay. You do you. And welcome, Steph. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Jess. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, what a fun way for us to just spend the afternoon, just hang out, chit-chatting. I would love for you to start with just telling us who you are, Steph, and where your beautiful story got started.
I love this question. Where did my story get started? My mom would probably roll her eyes right now and be like, oh my God, Jess, how much do you want her to tell? Because this girl can speak.
That's why I love you. Use your voice, baby.
So basically, how I got to where I am today, which is coaching and teaching psychological safety, I'll tell that story. I was a pretty I think we're all very unique people. But I was a pretty uniquely maybe scared little girl, always afraid to make the wrong step. And so it led me into having some pretty insecure friendships. I was bullied. And then I moved into my 20s. I was in an emotionally abusive relationship. And then in my in my 20s, I was also in toxic workplace relationships. And so to be real with you, a lot of my history, although there were some beautiful, bright pieces throughout, I like to say that my first 40 years, because I turned 40 last year, my first 40 years were about pain, and my next 60 years are going to be about pleasure. And so I really lean into these days doing my best to find that whole pleasure piece as much as possible through my life, so that I can rewrite the story of so much emotional pain. I know that that's pretty heavy way to start, and to some people maybe, but to me, it's actually a beautiful championship story of mine that, in a nutshell, that actually lights me up. It really does.
I love that. Can you tell us what pleasure means for you in this next 60 years? What is it? What's gonna really light you up?
It's funny you say 60. When you said 60 years back to me, I'm thinking, no, maybe more. I don't want to limit myself. But yeah,
60 plus.
I love it. Really, it just means embracing life for all it has to bring. I really truly feel like I spent a lot of my life being thrown around by my environment and not really what was inside of me. So not relying on inner strength, not relying on who I was as a person, always looking outside for the world to tell me who I am. And so pleasure for me is leaning into me as an individual and what that adds to society as a collective. So how me being me adds so much beautifulness to my life wherever I am in that moment, happy, sad, mad, glad, upset, anxious, joyful, whatever it is, embracing it all, so that it becomes a beautiful piece of life, and accepting it instead of actually pushing it down like I did for so many years. I'm all about the emotions, Jess. I'm all about the emotions.
Oh, girl.
Embracing them.
Yeah. Emotions over here all the time. So if you're going down and you're sharing your emotions, I'm coming with you, whatever it is. So I feel you. I'm curious too on do you have something in your heart or in your mind that you're thinking when I'm oh yeah, Saturday, the most pleasurable thing I can do. Whenever I think pleasure, I'm wink, wink. But no, actually, what is pleasure for you? Is it going to the beach? Is it going this morning you went out for coffee with the girls? What is it for you? What's the dream day?
It's actually, I explore that all the time. It's such a good question. I'm always exploring it, and it changes all of the time for me. I'm gonna say though, the most pleasurable piece of life for me, and this is honestly learning. So it doesn't matter where I am, doesn't matter what I'm doing. As long as it's feeling to me like there's some sort of learning and growth in it, that's when I'm in my glee. Like if I take I feel like I'm almost like a scavenger of little gems in life. And
Mhm.
so if I can have a conversation with somebody and I pick up a gem from them, that I can take with me, that's the joy. So it really doesn't matter where I am. And in that, I feel blessed, honestly, because it helps me to because I have now discovered gems in everything. There's almost no scenario in which I cannot be content.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good way of looking at it. I like the gem ideas too, like picking them up and put it in my pocket, like things that I can have. So I think that's just a great way to look at just every single day. Do you know your human design?
I do. Yeah.
What
I'm a
are you?
generator 5-1 profile.
Interesting. I would have thought for sure, just the way that you said like how you love learning. I'm like, oh, she's a projector for sure. But oh, that's exciting. So you got energy for days.
Yeah, when I'm doing what I love.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah. Oh, so cool. So, can you tell us a bit about the psychological safety that you've been doing and how you support salons because that's where your field is, right? Mostly with salon work and the beauty industry and how you offer like psychological safe services. Like, what is that?
Well, it all ties back to what I was saying about my childhood. So basically, feeling that I was essentially unsafe pretty much anywhere I went, any relationship. And again, it's not global, it's not all the time, but if I could say as a theme, that's how I felt. And I also have a diagnosis of generalized anxiety disorder. And so when I got that diagnosis, I recognized and had to take a look around and see what was going on. And I think that led me to seeing where in my life there was fear. Now, I didn't know that at the time, but now when I found psychological safety, so psychological safety was something that I found during the pandemic. I was working with salon leaders. So part of my backstory is I've been working in the beauty industry for nearly 20 years, and I've been working with a global hair care brand, facilitating with them for almost that entire time. And so I help to teach other hairstylists. Usually, I was helping them to teach them on how to do, say, cut, colors, curly hair, that kind of thing, right? Very hands on. But my passion wasn't in that. It was in the actual teaching, the actual being in a room, helping to change people's lives. And I also had the privilege of having coaches throughout, and this is going somewhere. So when I found coaching, I realized that's where I want to go. And so I wanted to help coach people more so, not necessarily on how to do hair, but more on the soft skills, Jess. So more how to actually be more confident behind the chair, how to provide better services behind the chair, how to show up in a way in which you feel pleasure behind the chair, like you're enjoying your job, how to avoid compassion fatigue, all these things. And during the pandemic, and maybe just before, a lot of people were leaving salons, especially in Newfoundland. But I know it's been happening in the US for a while to go like salon suites. I did it myself. And so there's been this big exodus out of salons. And I have a lot of salon owner friends, and I have a lot of salon owners that I was working with Redken. And I thought, well, how can I support them? Because even though the journey for me was to go on my own, because it made a lot of sense for me, I didn't want that for everybody. I didn't want for it to be this story of how salons are toxic environments. Now, not everyone, again, this is nothing about global, but so many of them, due to the nature of what we do and compassion fatigue and salon owners having to work behind the chair, plus run a business, plus, wrangle all the cats, it becomes overwhelming for them. And so because there's so much stress, when you're in an environment of stress, no matter what in that environment, you cannot live up to your full potential. And it often leads to people leaving the salon industry. Plus, in this industry, we tend to have a lot of sensitive people, highly sensitive people. And so I really wanted salon owners to learn the skills that they needed to keep their staff, was how it started. And so when I was researching that, psychological safety kept coming up. It kept coming up. And at first it wasn't very sexy. I gotta tell you, I did a course with Canadian Mental Health Association. I was the only hairstylist. I was there with all sorts of professionals who are in the medical field and a lot of HR people. And, they're sexy. Sure. There's some sexiness there, but the actual material was very like stiff. It was like, when we do this, then this is the result. And we must, so
Steph's got
I,
robot hands when she does that too, just so you know, so you can get the whole visual here. It was real good.
yeah, and it was really stuffy, to be honest with you. So I didn't necessarily, I saw the value in it. I saw some values of pieces, but I'm a creative. And so it's like, okay, well, what pieces will I take from this? And that was all it was. I'll just take pieces of this and I'll share it with leadership, and I'll combine it with the things I've done before. Like I'm mindfulness certified and I'm Reiki certified. So I do a lot of work on energy, and I'll just do all of my things that I know work for me, and I'll use this as a vehicle because there's scientific or at least researched based material here to say why it works, right? And so then I just kind of did that, and then all of a sudden the more I did it and the more I looked at it and the more I made it my own, I was like, oh holy crap, this is real. This is juicy. And the more I started to look at my own history with fear and anxiety, and the more I started to become a mental health advocate, and honestly, Jess, it just came all together. And I realized, oh my God, everything I value is in this one subject. Because psychological safety, I went on to do a 6-week program at the University of New Brunswick, and it is basically the reduction of fear and the promotion of well-being. And everything I've been doing is that. Everything I was doing in my coaching, everything I was doing in life for myself was reducing fear and promoting well-being. And that's when I knew that this is the path forward for not just myself, but for the beauty industry. And Fortune 500 companies have been using it for decades. There are many big companies that teach psychological safety, but to hire a consult, like a consultant, sorry, for psychological safety is not necessarily accessible for these small service-based industries. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to make it accessible. I'm going to do this. And so I've created Psychologically Safe Service, which is a program that I run that does exactly that. It shares psychological safety, but through a beautifully creative lens that I'm so proud of. And I draw in from all of my loves, which I think connect really well to the beauty industry because I am a beauty professional. So I think we have a lot in common. And coming through that path, it's not as stuffy and it's a lot more sexy.
I like it. I always wonder that too, because I when I see salons and I see the beauty industry, like I often as an empath can like look around the room and be like, just like, wow, like they have a lot of heavy work. The fact that they're working hard to make other people feel more confident and more beautiful in the stuff that they do, but also just like, honestly, like they have to sit there and listen to a lot of people's shit. Like they are therapists essentially for the 3 or 4 hours that you're sitting in the chair. And it's just it must be a heavy place to work. No wonder people are running, or no wonder people are just like, yeah, that fear of having to live like that for the rest of their life. It's a heavy role, and we don't always see it like that. So I love that you're supporting them and loving them and giving the tools that they need to just like thrive in that business. Because I don't know about you, I love my hairstylist. Like I hope she's working for a long, long time.
She can, but most beauty professionals have a very short career. I believe the average years ago, like I'm talking probably about 2008, was 2 years in the industry.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, because it does take its toll. So we talk about a lot in the medical field, compassion fatigue. And compassion fatigue is actually, its name is secondary trauma. That's what it is also known as. And secondary trauma meaning the sharing of trauma and taking it on as your own. And it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody that sits down in your chair, because I think a lot of times it's like some hairstylists, they may be listening to this, or some, people like yourself, clients may be listening to this, and they may be thinking, yeah, but we don't necessarily always have those conversations. No, we don't always have heavy conversations behind the chair. They can be quite light sometimes, but when there are two energies basically that happen. And we can have an energy where people want to avoid us or people want to approach us. And sometimes as a service provider, whether you be a hairstylist. Like I work with any service industry that touches people. So if you are in the physical energy of other people, so aesthetics, barbers, hairstylists, I'm going to be actually working with an optometrist office soon, massage therapist. So it's not just for the beauty industry, but primarily for them. But if you are have a guest that comes in, well, maybe today that guest energy due to life circumstances is an avoid energy, right? It's coming from a place of fear. We don't often label it as fear. We often label, I think a lot of the label that we are more comfortable with is we might say overwhelmed. They might feel overwhelmed. They might feel anxious. But essentially, a lot of times when that happens, they are more in the range of fear, say, than they are in the range of feeling safety or feeling loving, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there are so many times for service providers we can't avoid it. We cannot avoid, um, even though their energy says avoid, we can't avoid it. We have to provide the service. And so, what I do in this program is I share with them some little things that they can do to kind of protect their own energy as well as shift the energy through conversation, and also how to assist in listening without taking on their energy. And of course, those are little snippets because there's only so much you can do in a 2 day program, but I got something fun coming soon, so that'll be a
Ooh.
lot deeper than that, which will share a lot more. So,
Ooh, amazing. Yeah, I think that's like just such important work that you're doing because we need service-based people to still do their things. Not everybody can hide and work from home like I do. We need people out there doing that work, and I love that you're just supporting people and making it accessible for them to do it long term if that's what they desire. So I love it. And here at Selfish Confidence, we're like all about living that confident life. And even if it's unconventional, like you're doing things different. And I think that's why I wanted you on the podcast because it's just showing people what's possible through living unconventional and different lives. So when did you know you wanted to live and do life differently?
well, I think I've always known. I am a bucker of all things. Like I like to buck off things. I don't know what a word I'm trying to use there, but
Are you
if
trying to use another word that rhymes with
not
that?
necessarily, I'm thinking more like a horse bucks off something,
Yeah,
like
I get it.
you try to ride me. Yeah, I'm just like, no. I have a very
It's back to
rebellious
that pleasure, right?
back to that pleasure. And I mean, listen, we could go, we're not going to go down this route on this podcast, I don't think. But at one point in my life, I was like, I could have done the sex with Sue thing. Like, I love that too. So
Oh,
just going there.
yeah.
Right. Her whole vibe and energy. But yeah, like I've always had a rebellious nature since I was a kid. Like the biggest thing, I've always been very curious. So why? And if somebody can't give me a good reason why I need to follow a path, and I'm not following that path, or if I do, I will eventually get off of it because it doesn't feel right for me. I've always been, maybe didn't know it until my 30s, but I've always been somebody who really wants to do things my own way. Just ask my husband.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think just knowing that innately, and I think a lot of people listening can feel that way, but not everyone's as courageous as you to just be like, I know I wanted to live life differently, so I asked the questions and I just decided I was going to do it. What would you tell that person who, in their heart, in their gut, they know that they want to do things differently, but they have a fear of judgment or a fear in general? What would you tell them?
Oh, yeah. So, Jess, this is like honestly, and I know you feel this way as a coach too. It's one of those things where that is my ultimate goal in life to help people to make that shift for themselves, right? So what I would tell them is listen, just listen to themselves. Go within. Like the biggest thing I find is that so many people again look to the outside for the answer when the answer lies within them. And then some people do go within and then they ignore the call within. Like I ignored the call within. I was 24 when I knew I wanted to be a coach. I can't even remember. I don't know. Story keeps changing because honestly, I can't remember if it was 24, 26, but whatever. I was about that age, but I didn't do it until I was 38. I started the process. So I've been doing coaching certifications for years, but I didn't actually shut down. So I only work 2 days behind the chair now. And I shut down my business. Half of my income. I completely, like I said, I just went, no, I money for me can't be my only thing. I have to pursue this. And so, yeah, for me to take that big leap and to shut down such a lucrative career, um, for me, it became the calling of my heart was way overpowering than anything else, and I was sick of not listening to it. The one piece of advice I will give is when you are thinking of yourself, or your listener can do this now, I do it all the time. Think about when you are lying in bed when you're 80 years old or 90 years old, what are you going to regret? And look back. And then you can also say, what will you be proud of? And whatever that is for you, because it doesn't always mean you have to make this huge shift. Because sometimes we can, even within the job that we're in, even if we have a story where we freaking hate our jobs, for instance, because that's usually where it is, right? Or maybe we hate being a stay-at-home mom, right? And we want to go out and find a career. Well, I will say, that the more that we can live in as much joy as possible, and I know this to be true, the more we can find the slices of happiness within us. And I'm going to get a bit woo woo here, but the outside universe shifts, the grass becomes greener, and also the path becomes clearer to where you need to go next. Because I can say, knowing from my own experience, the more I sat back and was like, I'm a victim to my job. I have to work this. I can't, I can't quit. I have to continue down this path of hairstyling because, I chose it and my story was I'm successful at it and blah, blah, blah. And I do like it, but it wasn't my heart's calling. The more I stayed in that story, smaller I felt, the less I felt like moving forward, the less happy I was. And so it really does begin with shifting to see where's the good. That's how it starts in the today, and also being future forward to say what can I be proud of? What can I do? And if you can hold those two things simultaneously, the future self and today's moment, and looking for the joy today, I promise you the world shifts.
Yeah. When you brought back to the moment of laying in your bed when you're 80 years old and you think of that, or if you're Steph, like when you're 120 and you're laying in bed and you're looking back, you're just like, I just got that emotional feeling that there's someone who needs to visualize that. There's someone who needs to hear that, because I think we always think we have time. And honestly, like, it could be even when you're laying in bed at 35, like, you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. So pursuing what's on your heart and getting uncomfortable, like, is the only thing you can do. Like, staying miserable is just not worth it anymore. We don't know. We don't know what's coming.
No, it's true. And in saying that, and that is that is so true. And there's reality that there are some people who right now, financially wise, they cannot quit their job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't want them to feel like there's no hope. It's like, okay, well, I'm bound to disappoint my 90-year-old self because I'm trapped in this job. That's not necessarily true, because what we don't know is that one tiny millimeter shift in my I will say, I'm going to say attitude today, one tiny millimeter shift in my perspective is probably a better word, in how I see the world and view the world, and how I choose to see the world and view the world, can make all the difference. So just imagine, for the listener, just imagine that right now there is something on your heart that you want to do, and you know what it is, right? We all ultimately know what it is. I don't need to tell anybody, and nor can I. But if that dream seems so far reaching for you, then I bet you there's one step today that you can take, that you can step into whoever that person or whatever that feeling you are actually looking for. Because what it is, we're not actually looking for, like, say if I don't know, who knows, like, I want to write a New York Times bestseller, right? But for what? For what reason? What's that going to make me feel like? Right. And so if I can step into that feeling today, of whatever feeling I believe that is to be true, then I've already won. I've already won, because now I'm feeling that feeling. So if I can identify the emotion that goes with whatever my goal is, and I can feel as much of that emotion as I can today, if I can get really specific about it, then I will ultimately bring that emotion to me, which is what I truly want. And I ultimately bring that dream to me, because if it is the true dream, then it will come to me through the moments that I feel on the same synchronicity with that. That may be a little woo, but what's the harm in looking for a beautiful emotion that you want to feel and making it your goal for today, even if you don't believe that the universe is going to shift in your favor, even if you don't believe any of that? What is the harm in being delusionally, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, give it. If
So
that's your truth, then you can swear.
Okay, so what is the harm in being delusionally fucking happy? What's the harm? You know, I think so many people are afraid to be happy, are afraid to be joyful too much, are afraid to let in those beautiful emotions. And I don't want to make anybody's story my own, but I know that was me for a long time. We're afraid to be quote unquote big. We're afraid to shine bright, whatever it is. Um, but I also believe, or I know for a fact that, damn it, I feel really good when I put my emotions first and my joy first. And that doesn't mean being selfish, because some of the things that feel the best are doing things for other people, right? So, I believe that when we step into our own authenticity, we actually do better things in the world. But in the meantime, if you can, like I said, find that emotion, connect to it today as much as possible, then you've at least won today. You've at least won this minute. And that's I think I don't know if that answers your question, but I think it's a beautiful place to start.
Yeah, I love the goal being an emotion versus an outcome. So oftentimes I'll be like, oh, when I quit my job, that's when I'll be happy. Or when I, get married, that's when I'll be happy. I used to live that life, right? Check the boxes, do what society told me to do, go to university. Great. Yeah, I did it. That means I'm happy, right? Find a husband. Awesome. Check the box. Oh, I must be happy now. I got the job. Perfect. Great. Like I'm happy. But really, like just instead of checking the boxes or having it being an external thing, right? Like you said earlier, going within and finding that happiness and making that the goal, I think is like such a great way to look at it. Or even if it's like a different emotion for you, it doesn't always have to be happiness to be the goal. And I like that focus a lot better than us putting, even on the vision board, right? The numbers and the things that I want. Like, what if the only thing on the vision board for me was like confidence or happiness or joy? It's like that. I'm pretty sure I would be pretty happy if my goal was happiness. Like, what a great way to look at it.
Yeah. I also have a really cool activity that I share with my coaching clients that I know was really powerful for myself and for them. And that is, you look at the, when you look at yourself as the best version of who you are, right? Or the best, even if you don't feel like you're the best version, what is the best version of out maybe people that you love, and you put that on paper. So Stephanie is somebody who um maybe she gives people the benefit of the doubt. Stephanie is somebody who, when she walks into a room, she smiles at people. Stephanie is somebody who is courageous. Stephanie is somebody who, right? And you keep completing these sentences and just pages and pages and pages of it. And then when you look at this, at all of these pages of who that person is, who you are at your highest self, and then you keep going through them, and you look at them, and this is a process that I do all the time, and narrowing it down to what is the highest version of me in alignment, and you keep coming back to that daily. You keep coming back to it, and it reminds you of who you are. It reminds you, because if you can see it, if you know it, even if you're not feeling like you're that person, if you remind yourself of who that is every day, and you can see that, you now have, it becomes a goal. Just like people say, you write down your goals and you're more likely to manifest. Well, why don't I would love for us all to start more manifesting who we want to be rather than what we want to have. Because when we start to manifest who we want to be, then everything else falls into place, and the world becomes a lot more loving and therefore safer place to be for everyone.
Oh yeah, mic drop. I really do appreciate that focus so much. To be on like that who you are and that feeling of being versus all these other outside things. And again, like it's been a big focus of mine to find that within. And even after hiring coaches and working with a lot of people who helped to see belief in me and make things like for me, I'm like, oh, that external, like, oh, I like it's going to feel so good when they're proud of me. And I had to shift that to like when I'm proud of me, like what is within me. And it takes a lot of time because honestly, like getting the external stuff is so much easier. Like it's just like going to the store and buying some mac and cheese. Like it's just easier than doing the hard work and going within and figuring out who you are. So I love that focus for our listeners and for the people who want more in their life and just feel like they can't get it. Like you can get it. It's already in there. You just got to find it. So what a great way to look at it. How are you using your growth and healing to help others align and thrive in their life?
I think we all do that. Like Jess, I think you're doing that. I think we all do that. And it's stepping into who we are. So the I keep wanting, whenever I say this, I keep seeing this image of, can you picture like those holographic images of, or a blurred image where you're seeing yourself, like you see yourself there, but then there's like an outline of, you, but another version of you and another version of you, and like they're not all in sync. It's like the hall of mirrors behind you
Ooh, yeah.
when I don't know if I'm describing that right, but when we are in alignment, our we become clearer, right? So when you slide all those images together, that's when you become clearer. You can even think of it like when you take a picture, all the layers of color together, like so, that layer of yellow, red, blue, and then you put them all together, and all of a sudden you have a photo, a full frame, colorful, beautiful image of us in our totality. When we align and when we start to live our truth, then that we become clearer and we become a beacon for other people. And I think that's all we need to do. I think that just you being you and doing the journey you're doing, Jess, living your truth, when you got on stage at Shift and you shared your story, it was so powerful because you were you. You didn't try to be anything else. You didn't try to be anywhere you were not. You were in alignment with who you were in that moment in time, and in that you were powerful and gave a beautiful message for every other person in that room. And when I do that, and I don't do it every second of every day, I have moments where I'm out of alignment. But when I'm in alignment and I'm showing up as me and not trying to be anybody else or anything else, that's what I believe healed is. And
Mm.
I'm not healed every moment of every day, but I have moments where I am complete. I'm complete and I'm whole and I'm here. And that when I can do that as often as possible, like I said, we're just beacons then, and we set the example. And
Yeah.
that's, I believe, the truth for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. Like we're not in alignment every day. Like now I was eating spaghetti on the couch watching that show Ginny and Georgia yesterday, and like probably wasn't super aligned in that moment, but like it was just a wonderful time to hang out with my dog. But it's just reminding ourselves that if even the majority of the time you're, doing your best to step into alignment and making those aligned decisions, it really does go a long way. Things that I thought were like for sure my destiny. I was thinking about this in the car. Things that I thought for sure, like this is where I'm supposed to go. Like even past boyfriends who I thought I was going to marry, like things that have happened in my life that really helped to like steer that alignment, whether it was me, whether it was like some other external factor that really helped me to put me in the right place, has really defined where I am. It was like little tiny steps, little things that have happened along the way that helped to shift that alignment. It's not even an overnight thing, right? It's not like you just wake up and you're like, today I'm gonna be aligned. It's just like little things that happen throughout life and throughout the day that put you in that direction and just feels right. You know.
Yeah, and the way that we tell it, so thoughts are the language of the mind, emotions are the language of the body. And that's why I talk a lot about emotions, because how we know whether or not we're in alignment or not is oftentimes by how we feel and what we think. And so if you're wondering, where am I in this moment? You can also get very black and white about it. So are your thoughts feeling like they are leading you more towards fear, or are your thoughts leading you more towards love? Are your feelings making you feel like you want to avoid people, avoid things, or are they feeling like you want to approach people or approach things? And you can also think of, are my feelings making me feel expansive, or are they making me feel contracted and small? And so if you get kind of linear with that and black and white with that, of course, there's so many nuances there, but you can kind of get a read for where you are in this moment. And that's again why emotions are so important and powerful in the story of our lives, because they will direct us whether we are aware of it or not. They are always directing us. So we do have control of our emotions, but only when we know we do. When we are not aware that we have control of our emotions control us. And this is, I was just listening to a podcast actually, and not to go on a tangent, but I think it's really relevant for what we're talking about. But I was just listening to a podcast, and it was a Brene Brown Unlocking Us, and I can't remember her guest, but he was saying that he did a study where he had 2,000 educators test exams, like correct exams. But what he did before that was he had them either envision for 5 minutes a beautiful day or envision for 5 minutes their worst day. And with that emotion, then having after 5 minutes envisioning it, because what we think about will create an emotion within us, they then marked papers. And the people who were had the bad day gave on average 1 to 2 grades lower than the people on average who actually were feeling good in their day. And when he asked them if emotions, he asked everybody, do you think emotions change the way you grade? 90% of the people said no. But the study showed that emotions actually do make us react differently or make us behave differently. Emotions change our behavior. And so, really acknowledging where you are physically, like as in where are your emotions, not physically like your muscles, but physically what's going on in your body, and getting to know yourself at a really cellular level with your emotions actually is the most empowering thing you can do for yourself. Because everything that I've shared on this podcast episode, all of those things, the minutia, the really, when you boil it down to anything, is get clear with your emotions and you get clear with everything.
Yeah. Wow. That is relevant. Thank you for that tangent. I needed it. It's like we don't often think how our emotions affect everything we do, even just like answering the phone or, going out for groceries like I did this morning. Those little things, like your emotions are going to affect what you buy or how you, talk to the person at the checkout or all these things. So I love that perspective. I wanted to ask you too, when we were at Shift and I was on stage and I asked the crowd, like, is there anyone in this room who feels like freaking confident? And you raised your hand. You're just like, me, I am freaking confident. And I was just like, yes, Steph, I love that. What would you tell the woman who wants more in their life, who wants confidence, who wants to feel great, but doesn't feel like they have it? Like, how do they become that beautiful, confident version of themselves that's just like, me, I'm confident, like can raise their hand when they're asked that question?
I feel like you could answer this question as well as I could, but since you're interviewing me, I'll answer it.
It's your job today.
and then you please answer how you feel, because I think that it's valuable. Um, I have self-doubt like anybody, but I don't listen to it anymore. So when I do, or I can't say don't, I don't go down the path of it. So if you can imagine a freight train, or you can imagine and Abraham Hicks. I love Abraham Hicks. So if that's a whole woo-woo thing, but check them out on YouTube if you're curious about what I'm talking about. But they always talk about the analogy of with thoughts. If you can stop your thoughts at the top of the hill, like say you have a car at the very top of a hill, and you were to just nudge that car, right? And you could easily jump in front of the car and stop it if you just gave it a little nudge. But if you let that car get momentum, there's no way you're going to stop that car by standing in front of it and putting your hand up if it's halfway down the hill or at the bottom of the hill. And that's the same thing with our thoughts. So you can think of that car dragging our emotions right behind it, right? Same thing goes with our thoughts and our emotions. And so if for self-doubt, because that's what eats away at our confidence, it is, if I could boil it down to one thing, it's self-doubt, or it's doubt in general. And so if you can stop the doubt when it's at the top of the hill, like the thought's still going to come up. It comes up even Oprah has admitted to it. Like there's, almost every confident leader has said that they have doubt. But if you can stand in front of that doubt before it starts down the slope of the hill, then that's where you will stay confident. You're more, the momentum hasn't happened there. And that's where I am. I'm not 100% perfect at it, but my goodness, it is leaps and bounds from where it was, so much so that I can raise my hand confidently and say that I am confident. And that's because I don't allow those doubts, those little voices in my head, those stories in my head to gain momentum very often. And now tomorrow that may change, Jess. Tomorrow I might have a down day, or I might have a down week, or I might have a down year. But today I can say 100% that I am confident. Now I want to hear yours.
Oh, I love that perspective, because for me, I always talk about it's more on the knowing, like know yourself, know what you want, ask yourself the questions and really dive into knowing yourself. And that's how you're going to feel more confident. Like if you were to know when I asked that question, you knew because you are confident. Like, you know yourself, you've done the work, you've done the self-discovery. And I often think it's in like putting in that work to figure out who you are and like knowing yourself, like, you know, your best friend, knowing your mom, knowing your husband, like all these people who are around us who I can tell you, I can predict their actions or predict what they're going to say when I say something or when I ask them what they want for dinner. Like, I can predict what they're going to say because I know them so well. But when I ask someone, like, what do you want for dinner or what would you want to do on your birthday? You're just like, I don't know. Like, knowing yourself, like, you know, all these other people in your life that you can predict their every move, like, start to predict your moves. Like, just knowing yourself, I find, is what helps people to have that confidence to raise their hand when you ask that question. But it's interesting too, when you were talking, like, for me, I have a lot of doubt. And especially as I'm growing and things are getting uncomfortably big, I'm just like, holy poop. And like, I know the look you just gave me, that's what I'm trying to work through even as you were speaking, because I was like, maybe I'll ask you this while we're on. I was going to ask as soon as we came off some advice on that, because if I'm having these thoughts sometimes when I look at my schedule, it's very full, it's busy, it's booming to the point where I've been, I think, playing small looking at my schedule because I'm just like, I can't handle all this. Like, how do you approach those thoughts and that doubt and those beliefs that you have in yourself, even when you know you're made for it, even when you know it's aligned? I've been feeling that a lot lately, looking at my calendar, and I'm just like, whoa, like, how am I going to be able to keep up with all this?
It's Jess, I think so. One thing I want to say is to you, to the listener, and I know this, I know you enough that I know you know this is true, is that any answer that anything that resonates that I say, you say, Jess, it's because the answer is within you, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know the answer. And I think that we rely too much on other people for advice.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say this just in case just to trigger something, right? And so it's
Are you
something,
going to
again,
make me cry today already?
I I mean, I love
Maybe.
emotions.
I do
Beautiful.
too.
Yeah. Yeah. So you should. I mean, if that will come, if there it needs to come out, let it come out. What I'm gonna say is that in those moments when you look at your schedule, what story are you telling yourself? Right. So if you look, and you don't have to answer that right now, you can if you want to, but for the listener, maybe that's their story right now too. Maybe it's not necessarily because the beautiful thing for you is that means your dreams are being fulfilled, right? When you're looking at the calendar. But there's a story you're telling yourself. And if you can get really clear on what story you're telling yourself, then and that story can always be shifted. That's the great thing. When we discover the story, we get to then edit it, right? We can edit anything we're saying. And that's the power that we have being human beings and not being a dog or a cat or whatever. We have the power of thought and we have the power of imagination. And so, first step is get clear on what story you're telling yourself when you look at all that. And so, if you're looking at all that and saying, who am I to? Right? Or if you're looking at that and saying, do I have enough time to do all that? Because there could be so many stories. It might be that you don't have enough, maybe you just feel like you don't have enough time. Maybe you feel like you don't have enough knowledge. Maybe you feel like whatever. But usually there's two stories that it dials down to, and it's I'm not enough or I won't be loved. So when you're having fear or anxiety, those two stories are usually the two that it dials down to. And if you can dial it down, your fear down to either that am I feeling like I'm not going to be enough for this, or that I'm not going to be loved if I do it, then you can go from there. And the answer to both, which is funny enough, the answer to both is that we are always enough because we wouldn't even be breathing. We wouldn't have been born. We wouldn't have been brought onto this earth, if we were not enough simply being here. We don't have to do anything. I think we're in a world where we feel like we have to do everything. We don't have to do anything. I'm enough. And believe me, as a recovering overachiever, this was a big message for me. I'm enough just being me, right? The other answer is that one, though, I will say, is harder to embrace. The I'm enough just being me can sometimes conceptually be hard to embrace because it's not necessarily, it's like, no, I have to I have to be a productive member of society to be enough. No. You don't. You just have to live. The other side of it is, I gotta actually, you not just live. If you think about a flower, we don't ask it to be enough. We don't, it just does its job by being there. It does its job by breathing. So even if you get down to the minutia that right now my breathing out CO2 is actually providing the plants with what they need to breathe, and then they're providing me with the oxygen I need to breathe, then damn it, you're doing enough if you breathe. Like that's how small it gets. That's how productive it is to just breathe. You are helping somebody, some organism, something for breathing. Darn it, you're even helping the organisms in your, even just by being here. There's plenty of things living on you, living in you. You're helping them just by being here. So it really is, you are enough. I am enough just to sit here. But then the I won't be loved. I think what we forget is that we are love. We are love. And what I mean by that is that when we get down to the essence of everything, and when you strip away all the stories, you strip away everything. All we are is love. And you know this by what happens when somebody's in trouble. What happens? First thing people want to do is help because we are all love, we are all connected. And so in the end, no matter what, we are both those things. And that's I'm not enough and I won't be loved are two of the stories. And then to the last piece, if it's just simply overwhelmed you're feeling, and somebody else in listening to this podcast might be, how do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time, baby.
You only have this moment. We think back on the past and we think in the future so much. And yet all I have right now, I don't have to be anything right now besides being here with you answering your questions, Jess, and having a conversation with you.
Yeah.
I don't have to be anything. And if I didn't have an answer right now, I don't have an answer. Right? It's okay. And so I don't have to be anything except for here and doing the job I need to do right here. And I think so often we get so caught up in where we need to be next that we forget to even be here. Right?
Yeah, girl. Oh yeah, 100%. And
Yeah,
like
so
even too, like spending the day waking up and looking at my calendar, right? Like just taking it one moment at a time, I think is really helpful. And I love that. There was a reason that I had to ask you that online, I guess. There's someone who needed to hear that. And whoever is listening and they're just like, oh, yeah, Steph, mic drop. Send us a message, connect with us, because it really does make a big difference when we hear that our words are connecting with others. And Steph, that really felt deep. Exactly what I needed to hear. And earlier, too, when you were just talking about energies and emotions, it's like, yeah, there was a reason you had to come on the podcast today. I needed to hear that. So thank you so much. Can you tell our listeners where they can connect with you online and what they can expect from you?
Sure. So right now, I really am keeping my messages to psychological safety, but it often does lead back to all this stuff that I'm talking about here now, because again, um, when we talk about psychological safety, it does boil down to our emotions and how we feel. Right. And so if you're enjoying this conversation, you can connect with me on Instagram at psychologically safe Steph. And then I am constantly working on my website. I'm a solopreneur, so I'm doing a lot of the work myself. And but you can go on there right now. I have a free guidebook for psychologically safe service, and in it, I mean, it's mostly for service providers. There are a few tidbits, though. I have a whole section on psychologically safe self. So what you can do to be psychologically safe and secure within your own skin. That is one of the segments. And so yeah, they can always pop in there. And other than that, if you just love this conversation and just want general coaching or to connect with me, then just DM me. But Instagram is definitely the place. Oh, and I'm trying to build my TikTok too. I forgot about TikTok. I just recently.
Oh, are you on TikTok?
I'm so new at the whole TikTok. Yeah, so it's psychologically safe stuff on TikTok too. But I know that you get to go live when you have 1,000 followers, and so I'm like, give me followers so I can go and like do little share all the things that I'm doing here live on there, and it would be really cool to do that. So I welcome everybody to come there too.
Amazing. I will put all of that in the show notes so everyone can go and connect with Steph and just really see her light shine. Her page is beautiful. Her smile is beautiful. Like, you just got to go look at her. Just look at her, guys. She is gorgeous. I have a few questions that I ask every person who comes on the podcast. You ready?
Ready?
Okay. First one is, what is your favorite compliment to receive?
You helped me.
Oh, nice. You helped me today, Steph. Thank you so much for being here and for helping take me through the thoughts that I've been having. What is your favorite thing to do to boost your mood when you're feeling grumpy?
Dance or sing.
Ooh.
Mhm.
Are you a good singer?
I mean, I like to think I'm a good singer. My husband might have other stories for you. Um, but yeah, I can carry a tune for a second and then I go off and then I go on.
I love it. I love that. Karaoke, let's go.
I
When
love
I was
karaoke.
in Newfoundland, someone was going to take me to Karaoke Cops. They
I
didn't take me there, but
love I love karaoke. They used to know me before I got married. They knew me at karaoke cops.
no way. I was
They,
very disappointed that we didn't make it there.
oh yeah, I had a set list.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love that.
Number one being respect. What you want? Yeah.
Yes. I love it. Do you have a song or a quote that boosts your confidence? Is it respect?
Right now I love respect, but Birdie's
Oh, keeping your head up?
keeping your head up. Oh my God, absolutely loving that at the moment.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. I was jamming to that in the car today. That's a good one.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Steph, for being here and for sharing your light and your truth with our listeners and just being yourself today. What a great way to spend the day.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I love your energy and I love being here. So thank you.
You're always welcome. Come back anytime. I am so grateful that we could connect today. If you enjoyed today's episode, share it with a friend or on your social media and tag me so I can personally thank you for helping me grow this community and get my message out there. And don't forget, you deserve to embrace your truth. It's time to live life your way.